Before I started In Frame Out, I'd never seen a Studio Ghibli film, so a few years back I set myself a challenge. Going in totally blind, I'd work my way through every one of their mainline theatrically released features. That means no TV movies or any CG monstrosity that came out after I'd already locked the episode list for this series, so no, you won't be seeing either of these. To further mix things up, I've been watching them in a completely randomised sequence. And for that, I've incurred the snotty wrath and tangible threats to my physical safety from dorks who think it's okay to harass strangers on the internet because they like a cartoon more or less than you. But for the most part, I've looked forward to doing this every year, and y'all are the best audience in all of YouTube. If you haven't seen the previous episodes, watch those in the playlist linked below, then join us back here for the 5th and potentially final episode of Discovering Ghibli. For as long as he can remember, Jiro has dreamt of soaring through the clouds, but as war and cold reality pull him back down to Earth, he's torn between the drive to create and the destructive power of his inventions. Fawning over the animation in a Studio Ghibli production seems pretty redundant at this point, but it's a praise that's always worth repeating. The Wind Rises impeccably evokes gravity, velocity, and rushing air with such care and craft that it's hard to put into words. Every drifting particle, shimmering strand of hair, gust, gale, and gliding breeze. I can't overstate how extraordinary it is to see such elemental forces conveyed with this blend of dynamic realism and painterly impressionism. Miyazaki has carved a career out of his appreciation of the natural world and flying machines, and The Wind Rises feels like the confident culmination of his lifelong affections for both. Engines splutter with a salivating cough, and the organic contours of bird-like wings meld with the artificiality of engine grease and polished metal in a way that's both gorgeously rendered and intimidatingly apart from the lush fields and panoramas. It's in this juxtaposition that Miyazaki tries to reckon with the horrible line between a tool and a weapon, the artist's intent versus the real-world application of what they've built. You could even approach this as Miyazaki's autobiographical ode to the purity of his creative process and how he struggles with how his works are packaged and interpreted once they're released out into the world. The Wind Rises skirts the dark side of the dog-eared ingenuity and whimsical naivety found elsewhere in the Ghibli catalogue. This is an intricate and deeply involved character study that dances around the raindrops of morality, rather than clearly delineating between right and wrong. This begs the question, as a fictionalized biography of aeronautical engineer Jiro Horikoshi, who really was the architect of Japan's offensive air capabilities in World War II, is it right to so charitably excuse a man who was complicit in war crimes and actively responsible for thousands of deaths purely because of Miyazaki's optimistic, fluttering fandom? After watching the on-the-ground ugliness and unbridled horror felt by the victims of conflict in Grave of the Fireflies, such a swooning counterpoint to that same protracted slaughter creates a dissonance bordering on outright contradiction. None of which is helped by the ill-advised epilogue, where Jiro's mentor and the spectral apparition of his dead wife both show up to assure him that, yeah, you facilitated the undignified and agonizing murder of incalculable innocents, but hey, you did get to build some pretty nifty airplanes. Depending on just how much authorial latitude you're willing to extend Miyazaki's way, you might dismiss this as rose-tinted remembrance or repugnant revisionism. Which is a shame, because The Wind Rises is otherwise a stunning and assured work made with more heart than it can seemingly contain. Constructed by a master at the peak of their powers, who may just have been too close to his subject to see the bigger picture. After she saves a cat from oncoming traffic, Haru unwittingly finds herself betrothed to this mystical prince of a magical kitty kingdom.
Nice shot, sire.
The Cat Returns is technically a spin-off of the fantastical feline theatrics and staggeringly lovely Whisper of the Heart, but any comparisons would only serve to highlight just how much this feels like a waifish footnote to a classic, rather than a full-blown feature in its own right. The character designs are certainly decent, but this is one of the few times a Ghibli film has ever felt serviceably illustrated rather than world-class, and one of the rare instances where the studio's creative and artistic pedigree doesn't translate into wonderment. In other words, this may well be the only film they've released that feels like it could have been made by someone else.
Oh my. I guess we made a little mistake.
Still, there is plenty of charm that seeps through the cracks. From a pair of wagging cow and pig alarm clocks, a VCR setup tailor-made for kitties, and paw-friendly punch bowls filled with teeny tiny fishes, there's plenty here to tilt your head and swoon over. Not to mention this royal purring procession where suited bouncers yeet strays into the bushes as the mustachioed king of cats is carted in on a wheelbarrow throne. Which is so adorable I'm practically bursting with joy just editing this footage. I just wish the actual meat and marrow of the movie itself wasn't so insubstantial and inessential. There's nothing here to decode allegorically or otherwise, and the pacing feels like it's strapped to a jittery rocket. No sooner do we arrive in the mythical kingdom of cats than we're leaving, culminating in a final battle that's so bafflingly brief and weird that I can show it in its entirety right now without taking up much time of this video. By the layered, rich, and multifaceted standards of other Ghibli works, The Cat Returns is basically just fanciful cats doing absurd things for 70 minutes. Now, that's a cute trick, but it's also the only trick.
Wow! There are cats all over the place.
What did you expect?
Forget any narrative substance, dispense with any hope for astonishing designs or densely layered flourishes. This is largely just the same princess rejects an arranged marriage trope Disney milked to death decades ago. Only this time it's about a human being groomed into getting it on with a cat. Sure, she manages to escape that icky fate, but not before admitting she's attracted to this guy.
Just for the record, I think I may have a little crush on you.
Well, I guess that fills out this episode's Ghibli creepy sex stuff quota. Look, The Cat Returns isn't bad, it's just hard to feel enthused about something so lacking in the ambition and emotional tenets that have defined this filmography for decades on end. As Taiko takes a break from her 9-to-5 office life for a working vacation on a rural farm, she finds herself increasingly drawn to memories of her childhood, sifting through each recollection with a mix of fond nostalgia and pained realization.
あなたって大変な過去を背負って生きてんのね。
A wistful rumination on the pivotal moments in a young woman's early life and how these formative experiences inform the wants, needs, and desires of her adult self. Only Yesterday is something of an outlier for this studio, and I mean that in the best possible way. Opting for acute realism over fanciful digressions and domestic dramedy rather than eclectic fantasy, this is an achingly nuanced exploration of the hopes, expectations, disappointments, and realities of womanhood.
お父さんやめてください。
Each childhood vignette dovetails with Taiko's adult life to create a fully formed portrait in all its complicated, melancholic colours. And it's the specificity of her experiences that makes them so universally relatable. You know, the first big disappointment we all have to face, the kind where you try and convince yourself everything's fine when it really isn't? Here that's Taiko being gifted a fresh pineapple only to realise she really doesn't like it. How about that dizzying rush of a first crush? Here that's played out over a game of baseball where our heroine gets so excited she can't stop peeing.
寒さと緊張のあまり、私は5回もお手洗いに行ってしまったのだった。
It all rings true without a hint of triteness and shows a level of maturity and progressiveness which is still seldom seen in family-friendly films over 30 years later. The onset of puberty, menstruation, and how frightening and transformative that can be for young women is dealt with so accurately and extensively here that I can't actually think of another all-ages piece of entertainment that even attempts to address periods other than maybe My Girl?
私、4年生の時になったの。え、本当？だから、体育時々休んでるでしょ？
Only Yesterday is also a profoundly empathetic and feminist text, using the triumphs and laments of the past to push for a better future.
わかったの？
Despite being outnumbered 5-1, the stubborn presence of Taiko's father guides her life away from ambition and youthful aspiration and towards the status quo, aka a woman's place.
ダメだ。飯。
While she tries to reject this misogyny, her mother internalizes it, trying to coax her youngest daughter down a regressive path where gender roles and obedience are more appreciated than academia or individualistic expression.
好き嫌いばっかりして、作文がちょっとぐらい上手な子より好き嫌いしないで何でも食べる子の方がずっと偉いのよ。
If this all sounds like a downer, I assure you it's anything but. Every low is balanced out by a dizzying high, and the seesawing parallel narratives of Taiko's immature and adult lives are both deeply hopeful, showing that you can shed the hurt and mistakes made in childhood without letting go of the wide-eyed optimism of youth, and that every letdown and disappointment is a lesson for who and how we want to be. While I can't for the life of me imagine why anyone would want to work 14 back-breaking hours a day on a farm as a form of vacation, Only Yesterday makes a strong case, and is an experiential work of utter brilliance I can't wait to return to. When a witch transforms her parents into pigs, Chihiro must undergo a series of trials in the spiritual realm to save her mum and dad and find her way home.
I'm dreaming!
Well, my randomised viewing order sure did save one of the best for last, because Spirited Away is every bit the eclectic treasure and cultural landmark I've been led to believe. Every frame's a painting, and every scene's a meticulous marvel of structure and tone, with nary an encounter that doesn't introduce 5 new ideas and another 10 aesthetic embellishments. Take Chihiro and Yubaba's first meeting. There's a living door knocker, 3 green mustachioed heads hopping around, a disproportionately sized and jewellery bedazzled witch who can fly, turn into a crow, command a miniature doppelganger, and telekinetically control her surroundings, and a gigantic door-shredding baby. Now, laid out on paper, that sounds confusing and weird, but in context it all makes sense, and can be boiled down to little girl asks mean old woman for a job.
Okay, just be quiet.
This layering of abstract imagery and simplistic storytelling is what makes Spirited Away excel from whichever angle you approach it. For the analytically inclined, there are intertextual nods to The Wizard of Oz and Pinocchio, as well as broad themes of environmentalism and spirituality to consider. It's also about the fight to hold onto your sense of self when forced through the gauntlet of a capitalistic workaday world. A grinding life built on hierarchical wealth disparity where we're forced to sign our identity away just to get by.
You've got some customers on the way.
Wait, give us a minute. This is clearly harassment.
Or you can ignore all that and simply soak up the mad as a horse made of hammers vibes, gorge your eyes on the esoteric oddness, and hold tight to the simple central thread of a young girl coming of age and rescuing her parents. With a whirlwind pace that only overwhelms when it's outright trying to echo the emotional state of this lost but lively child. Oh, and how could I talk for this long without mentioning the peerless perfection that is the creative direction and character design? The sheer volume, complexity, and originality of each creature, critter, and comrade is unparalleled and never bettered. I mean, just look at these duck guys. How about the woolly radish bloke? Whatever this is, that's great. Did you see the duck guys? The cleansing of this polluted river spirit, which sublimely interpolates the fable of the mouse and the lion with a thorn in its paw, is up there with the most bonkers but beautiful set pieces in the studio's canon. No Face, with their actions and intentions flipping from sincere to sinister and sweet to scary from one second to the next, is one of the more beguiling, fascinating characters Ghibli have ever conceived.
Try this. It's delicious.
Then, in a moment that feels full circle, given that My Neighbor Totoro was the first of these films I watched for the series, we've got the return of the Soot Sprites. Here enacting an absolutely based labour strike and maintaining their place as the cutest little folks there ever were. So yeah, as you can probably tell, I'm completely in love with this. If you're looking for a con to all these pros, or something to scuff up all the shining praise, you aren't going to find it here. Spirited Away is a miracle of the medium and a masterpiece of cinema. So, after 5 years, we've come to the end of discovering Ghibli. It's been a deeply fulfilling and frequently incredible journey through some of the greatest films ever made, animated or otherwise, and I want to thank all of you who have either joined me along the way or stuck it out from the very beginning.
Thank you very much!
Now I guess I just need to watch them all again to tackle the final chapter of this saga. In Frame Out's definitive front-to-back ranking of every Studio Ghibli release. Coming soon. Ish. Some stunning Japanimation for our Patreon producers Jennifer C, Claire MD, Becky O, Hales and Rue, Historically Dumb, Jake R, and Nicholas Lair Revere, and a bushel of soot sprite for all these amazing folks who support us over on Patreon. What are your thoughts on the films I just discussed? What are your top 5 Ghibli films? And what's your least favourite? Let us know down in the comments, make sure to do all the like, share, subscribe business, and if you're in a position to do so, check out the link to our Patreon in the description below so you can sign up to the In Frame Out Film Club, get your name in the end credits, and access to our private Discord. As always, thank you for watching. Until next time, this is In Frame Out.